Another really important conversation to have is AI's exciting and very uncertain impact on schools. So, in the US, at least, kids are in full swing right now, going back to school here as our school year starts. There are equal parts excitement and uncertainty as schools everywhere are trying to grapple with all this chaos and opportunity provided by AI tools like ChatGPT. So, we're actually seeing much more kind of in our circles, more schools releasing policies or guidance on the use of AI in the classroom. But these policies and guidelines are very, very different depending on who you're looking at. So some schools are cracking down on AI use in classrooms. They're restricting how students are able to use it. You can get punished for using it in certain contexts. Other schools appear to be taking some positive views of the technology, and they're trying to help guide students and educators on how to make the most of AI tools in a sensible way. So we just kind of wanted to explore a little more in depth on today's episode what is going on with some of these policies, what schools might want to be thinking about, what's happening, just given how quickly AI seems to have upended education as usual. So, Paul, you also posted recently about this on LinkedIn, and you asked your network if schools, their kids' schools, have AI policies in place. Like, what did you learn from that?
So first off, I just want to say, let's be understanding of the position administrators and teachers are in right now. This is a really complicated thing. We, as business professionals, as marketers, as executives, we're struggling to understand this stuff, and we're more living it daily and even experimenting with it daily. So we're asking administrators and teachers and professors who have other things to deal with to all of a sudden also understand AI. So I just want to be clear up front that while what we're going to talk about here is challenging the system a bit and encouraging them to take faster and more thorough action in this area, it's unrealistic probably to expect them to solve this on their own. So what happened is I had about 3 weeks ago, I think, a buddy of mine shared a high school policy, and that was the first one I'd seen. And then I think, Tracy in our office, her children, young kids, they had an updated policy that she had to sign off on. And so that kind of triggered for me. And then I've had conversations with universities. I've had conversations with leaders of high schools, and I've also talked with leaders of middle schools. So I've had all this context, and then I saw those and I realized, like, oh my gosh, we're like, school is starting in parts of the United States in like a week when I was first thinking about this. And I realized like there was no uniformity of how this was going to be handled in school systems. So I did put it on LinkedIn and Facebook. I might have put it on Twitter too. And I was basically just asking, like, yeah, is anyone seeing handbooks, like updates to the handbooks or specific AI policies? The general response has been no, like nothing. And there was even on Facebook, I have friends who are teachers in middle schools, and they said largely, no, we don't have anything yet. So imagine these teachers who, might be anywhere in middle school or even into high school, or even professors who are going into school right now with no guidance on whether or not AI is cheating or not, how they're supposed to teach it in the classroom. It's a very unrealistic thing to put them in. It's an unfair position to put them in. But again, having talked to the leaders of a lot of these schools, I realized that they themselves don't really understand what's going on or what the implications are to the future of education and the future of work. So a couple of notes. So the first is most kind of have nothing. There was an example I saw from a 6th to 8th grade handbook updates. And this just basically said cheating is defined as, and there was like 3 things. One of them was using AI to complete assignments. That's it. That is all it said. It was like very broad. So for me, that's a useless policy. Like it's there's obviously lots of categories and variables to the use of AI, but then it does go on to say plagiarism as an example, using AI to create work and claiming as your own. It's like, okay, well, I mean, claiming it as your own, I guess I could see that if it wrote, but again, it needs more detail of what exactly that means. So here's an example where they did update a handbook, but it's so general that it's almost of no value. Like it creates more confusion. There was another person that posted, I think this might have been a high school one, It just said any use of generative AI result in a disciplinary review. That was
Hmm.
the entire update. A high school, it said students may, at the administration and faculty's discretion, learn to use AI text generators and other AI-based assistive resources, AI tools generally, to enhance 21st century learning. However, AI use can constitute academic dishonesty and plagiarism in many cases. It's like, okay, like that. I like that they're at least saying, hey, we understand this is a key to the future. But then it goes into saying you must cite AI tools when used, even if only for ideas.
Hmm.
Not terrible, but it doesn't tell you what happens if you do it, since you're not allowed to, because it says students may not use AI unless permitted. So they're basically saying, like, you're not allowed to do it, but if you do it and you're like given permission by the teacher, then you have to cite them. So it's like, okay, that's not like awful. It does go on to say use it to deepen understanding and support learning, which is good on the surface. It says teachers will seek to understand how AI tools work and optimize value for student learning. So my perception right now, based on these kind of guidance, again, this is actually under an artificial intelligence policy, a separate policy that was sent to parents, is that we may allow it to use it, but our teachers don't understand it. We're not explaining to you how they're going to learn this. We're just saying they commit to learning it in some capacity, meaning this is probably going to be very isolated. So you may have a teacher or a couple at this school that choose to figure this out for the good of their students and to prepare them for their future.
Hmm.
Then you're going to have a whole bunch that want nothing to do with this, that outlaw it completely in the classroom and don't want to hear anything about it being used, no matter if it's good for the students or not. So it just seems like this is going to be poorly applied and unevenly distributed, as we like to say. The benefits of AI will largely depend on who your teacher is and whether or not that teacher chooses to understand AI. So to me, while heading in the right direction, this seems very problematic. Um, and then they do say employ AI detection tools where appropriate, that the teachers will use them, which we know don't work. So now the guidance teachers are being given is use Turnitin or whatever other tool to identify whether something was written by AI. And we know that kids are going to be falsely failed and accused of things that they may or may not have done, but it's going to create all kinds of friction. So if me as a parent who understands this stuff gets, you know, a letter home that my child used AI and they therefore failed this thing, we're going to have problems. Like, it's going to create all kinds of friction between parents and administrators and faculty that's not necessary. So the thing I always say is, like, integrated and honest use is the key. Like, we should be encouraging them to use it and teaching them the capabilities of AI and using it to advance what the students are able to do and how they learn. But that if the administrators and teachers don't understand it, how are they supposed to teach it? So I think it's sort of irresponsible and counterproductive for schools to ignore the potential and just label AI as cheating.
Hmm.
It kind of shows a complete lack of vision for what we need to be thinking about for these kids. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if sometimes inaction is even better than some of the action. Like, it's,
Hmm.
but what I've told some leaders is, like, I don't see how we get through even the first half of this school year, like till the turn of the calendar year. I don't know how a school doesn't have some formal policy or point of view on this stuff. Like, it just seems like we are running into an absolute train wreck of cheating scandals that were not cheating scandals, of accusing accusations of plagiarism when it wasn't plagiarism, and it's just going to create so much confusion and friction that is unnecessary right now.
So, given how fast all this is moving, what can schools be doing to try to get more prepared? It sounds like at least one step is realize that AI detection tools are not 100% accurate. Probably don't build policies around those. Are there anything else they should be doing or thinking about?
I mean, I think they need to look to the associations and the organizations that are leading the way in this in education, and we need to do more ourselves, and maybe in future episodes we'll curate some resources for people. But I have seen solid, like, here's AI curriculum in classroom that you can be using. Here's ways that, template policies that are for the good of the student. Like, I think we need more of that, where there are these places that people can look to. We need formal education and training for teachers and professors so that they arrive at kind of a level benchmark of understanding of this technology. And then we need more sharing of kind of best practices. So again, some of this may be occurring and I kind of assumed it was at like the association level of teachers and administrators and things. But given the lack of policies in schools, now I'm questioning whether or not it's as wide scale as I assumed it was. And I'm kind of leaning in the direction of there's no uniform effort right now being made in education to solve for this, given how many schools I'm seeing that have nothing. So I just think we need more urgency to get some things in place to help these students versus, just taking the initial action of just accuse them of cheating. And again, they're probably using these things. I know they are at all levels without permission. And maybe they are writing papers. I'm sure they are, and helping with their math homework and all these things, but they have no guidance of what they're allowed and not allowed to do. So of course they are. One other quick analogy. This came up in a university. I was having a conversation recently with some university leaders, and someone equated it to telling someone in like 2000 you're not allowed to use Google for your homework. Like, you have to go to the library and take out the encyclopedia. It's cheating to use a search engine. And I believe back at that time, that was how some professors and administrators saw the internet, was it was cheating if you used that. And it feels like that's where we are again. It's like you have this incredible knowledge base and resource to help these students, and you're just going to straight up tell them it's cheating because it's not what you're used to. It's different. And that has proven time and time again throughout history to be the wrong approach. And I would encourage people to take action in the direction of integrating it in honest ways and using it as teaching tools.